Okay, another training today. Today is Wednesday. All I have to do today is bench press, and then shoulder accessories, some accessories for upper will probably be what I do. I might do some lower body stuff just to get the blood pumping, like some very light Bulgarian split squats or my tire pulls inside, though it's already getting later in the day, so we'll see how I feel after the bench session. I'm going to start saying what day of the week it is because I've realized that if you try to watch back my videos, it gets kind of confusing. This is my Wednesday session. This used to be, for a very long time, I was training SBD 6 days a week, or not for very long, but a bunch of weeks for most of the videos that I have made. I've now switched because I'm putting more of a bodybuilding focus with my training, more hypertrophy based, more volume in with heavier weights in every session in my main sessions. So it was carrying over too much fatigue to what should be lighter and easier sessions. And so I decided to cut out a whole bunch of sessions on squat, bench, and deadlift. I'm now down to only 3 squats a week, 4 benches a week, and 3 deadlifts a week. I'm thinking that with everything else I'm trying to do, that recovery will go better this way. So today is just bench. Tomorrow I don't have to train at all, so it'll be crazy. I think it's the longest my legs have had time to rest between main sessions in a while. So I say my legs because I find that's my quads, since I use my quads so predominantly in my sumo and in my squat. My quads get fatigued. It's something everybody would be a little bit careful with. And so I'm curious how I'll feel on a Thursday, especially because that Thursday should be a pretty important session. I'm very likely going to try to attempt 275 squat 3x3 if I'm feeling good that day. But that's a different video. Today is just bench press, pretty heavy day. I'm going to work up to 170 or 175 kilos for 4 to 6 sets of 3 before hitting shoulder accessories. Yep, okay, gonna get going. Peace. Oh wait, I'm also gonna not listen to music with the speakers because what I'm gonna test out is if I don't have sort of blocked music in the video that the YouTube picks up, if the video gets sent and distributed to more people. So I'm interested to see if viewership on this one is significantly higher or so. It might make for a more boring video to watch because everything will be silent. But it's just a bench video anyway, so it'll already be boring. So, peace.
It's to the point where I'm surprised it's not a set of like 8.
Well, I'm trying to warm up. I should have gotten me going a little earlier, so I warmed up pretty quick.
All right.
So,
Yeah, I've got to start doing more extensive warm ups on bench and stuff. My elbows are completely loose.
yeah, that's something when I was doing sort of squat days a week,
Yeah.
I definitely started noticing that as well.
How many squat days?
When I was doing like 6.
Okay. Yeah.
My elbows started. Not
Yeah.
like, I think you get it worse for some reason.
I get it faster. I definitely get it faster.
And what it really could come down to, like why you get elbow pain more than me,
Yeah.
this is something I've always talked about. Like, I remember I used to talk about, like, it sounds very arrogant, but people would ask, like, who do you think will be better in the long run, me or Aaron?
Yeah.
Alvin Fonderade.
Yeah.
And my answer would usually be me,
Yeah.
because I have more years in it, and my training history with other sports is bigger.
Yeah.
Deeper.
Yeah.
I think my body would be more robust. And that was before he started getting injured.
Yeah.
Where not only am I the strength I am, but I've been
Yeah.
training with like you guys just wrestling fucking around, but being younger, so it was harder on my body. We used to play that game of like bashing sticks into each other.
Yeah.
We used to literally play a game where you would pick up a stick, I'd pick up a stick,
Yeah.
and we'd hit the stick into each other as hard as we could. Now that would build your ligaments and tendons, but it was going to build mine harder because I was so much younger than you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's going to be hard. All of those things were hard on my body. I remember like my elbows when I was like a little guy, a little kid. My like elbows and my hands, it would hurt the day after we played that game. But because of that stuff, like, and for me, like how I've been benching 3 to 6 times a week
Yeah.
for forever at this point. And those just building in the tolerance, building in consistency and training history. And like I genuinely think with the same thing with like lower back pain, the longer you keep at training, the less deadlifts will hurt your lower back. Like there's actually like a threshold.
Yeah.
Like how you never hear like Rondell Hunt talking about how bad his back hurts after his sessions. Like they might talk about being sore a little bit, but those kinds of like
When I notice elbow pain starting,
yeah.
it's usually due to an abrupt spike in like my intensity in terms of weight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can handle like an increase in intensity in terms of sets with my elbows, whatever, much more easily. But what happened was I went from not touching much above 200 for 3 months, still knowing obviously I had the strength for it, to ramping up within 3 weeks and then all of a sudden trying to hit sets.
And you
at
have been
225.
pushing bench pretty hard.
And also simultaneously,
you may be been doing something. I notice I start to get a little bit of. I can't. The only time I ever start to get a little bit of bicep pain is if I stop doing bicep curls. So we've been also going to the
I think you
basic
also-
fitness consistently for
yeah.
accessories.
you've subtly
in
throughout the whole
while.
process been doing more in terms of accessories as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
That I have.
But it's
been
like it's a bit like I think like the longer you stay in the game in this like training thing, the less even when you do get the elbow pain, it'll be like less significant. And the more consistent you stay with all of the different factors, all the different components of training, the less these things become a thing.
No, right.
But it's absolute like these things are bound to happen, and that's an unfortunate reality with powerlifting. Is like when someone goes, "Oh, my lower back hurts," I'm like, that can happen.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And like what's also crazy is I meet a lot of untrained people who go, "Oh, I can never do that because my back hurts." Like you're training and you probably have a deficiency. And that deficiency will be discovered, if not by picking up your kid out of the pool, or it'll be found while trying to deadlift 180 kilos. But training is the only way to strengthen the deficiency.
Sure.
And now you'll find, especially if you're trying to powerlift and really trying to push numbers, you'll push the threshold. But the better and better you get at stuff, the less frequently stuff is going to hurt if you do it intelligently. Now, there's a lot of people who don't do it intelligently, and their bodies hurt year round.
Yeah, exactly. And
Feeling good.
nice.
Woo.
Nice.
So today on bench, I did 6 sets of 3 with 175. For a lot of them, I took 2 to 3 minutes of rest time in between the sets. They honestly all moved pretty smooth, pretty easy. They felt good. I'm sure there's some variance in execution, but there's almost always variance in execution between sets and reps. But in general, I'm very happy with this session. I feel confident to push the session up to 180 next week, and that should move well as well, which feels pretty good. Bench has been feeling a little bit sometimes sloppy lately, but today felt pretty crisp and pretty good. Felt like my usual self, and I'm hoping I can string together more sessions where it feels like that. I'm now going to do some accessories. I'll probably film a little bit of that. Okay, peace.
I heard the people talking, and the lady said something like, I heard something like, Willem, what do you listen to when you do your CrossFit stuff?
Oh yeah.
Or like, do you listen to like, I'd imagine that you would listen to intense music when you do your CrossFit.
When I do my CrossFit,
And I'm like, holy fuck, I think bro, if I was in an environment where somebody referred to powerlifting as the CrossFit stuff, I would lose my marbles.
well, look, I wasn't happy either. But like, what am I gonna do? Like, well, actually,
No. I'm not even saying you can't. Of course, you don't go, well, we don't fucking run. Like, like,
No, you don't. No, you wouldn't be a. You could. You can kindly correct somebody as well.
did you do that?
No.
Or, no, you just blew it off.
Yeah, because like it doesn't matter.
Bro, people don't know.
Because I already said powerlifting. I've already, you know what I mean?
And
So I'm gonna
I've
do it.
said powerlifting, and I've had people refer to it as bodybuilding
Right.
and different stuff. Even dad says, oh, people don't know what people always ask when I say powerlifting. They always ask, and so I sometimes just say like weightlifting or competitive lifting. He said,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're just making a general population even more confused by not like if you know what it is, just say the correct words. Because
Yeah.
otherwise you're participating in the confused general pop. But explain what happened exactly.
Yeah. So no, they were asking me like, you know, what kind of music that I listen to. Because the one guy initially wanted to know whether I, in true Dutch form, listened to like house music and electric music like only, right? Because he's really into house and that kind of stuff. And he mentioned that the Dutch DJs are some of his favorites, right? And as it turns out, that woman who was talking, also her favorite genre is kind of electric music, house music.
Unique.
Yeah, but when asked, you know, what my preference would be in terms of music, she at least had like, you know, heavy rock or like metal, that type of thing, and you know, he didn't know what to what to assign it to. I'm like, yeah, pretty much that, or like rap music.
Yeah.
You know, when it goes really hard, heavy.
It's interesting. What my personal experience with this is that like I find EDM, that kind of music sometimes, it's too fast paced for powerlifting. You almost want like the tendency I find. I'm also kind of weird, but the tendency I find is I almost want to lift at the pace of the music, and with like heavy weight, you're like. And you're like grinding out a squat.
Yeah.
Unless you can like go ape shit, you're like gorilla mode. I'd be too much like, okay, I feel like I'd be like, I'm not matching the music. It would like ruin my vibe. Where rock or rap is a lot more like tough and it's a little bit slower.
Which is why sometimes when I live to like the hard style remixes of like the pop songs, like those things, those can kind of sometimes function similarly.
Yeah.
Depending on the session, obviously.
Yeah.
But
what I love doing, and it came to mind because I'm strict pressing right now, is when if I do any kind of jerking motion, I love listening to EDM because that's like really fast paced.
Sure.
So like imagine you're doing an axle clean to overhead, you're like dunk, dunk, dunk,
Yeah.
boom,
Yeah.
right? Like that was horrible. But or if you're just unracking for a split jerk, right? You want the tempo of the dip and drive and catch to be kind of like when you dip and drive a jerk, you want like the tempo to be like, so like dunk, dunk, dunk.
Yeah.
Of your jerk. And if you actually have very fast music where you can kind of do that rhythm, where it's like dunk and then you wait 2 beats, and then dunk dunk where you like go with the music, you're like drive and extension and dipping under, is like with the music. It's like EDM is like perfect for that of like pushing tempo.
Yeah, and what I explained to them in terms of like why the rationale behind listening to hard music, while lifting, right? The type of lifting that we do is you need something which helps you like dissociate from your regular life, right? When you go in and lift heavy, you can't be thinking about, oh, I've got to get milk and I got to do do this and that, and I got chores to do and whatever. When you're approaching the bar every single time, the only thought in your mind is lift.
Yeah.
Or
it has to be.
Yeah,
If you're doing
exactly.
real weight for your body.
Right. So that was what I explained, and I mentioned to them, I'm like, yeah, and like it'll also happen where if I close my like I said yesterday when I closed my laptop, because Tuesday's the day I normally squat, I close my laptop, my adrenaline starts to spike immediately.
Yeah.
Like almost as soon as I stopped my workday, all of a sudden my vision starts going blurry and I start going into the same mode as if I'm approaching the barbell.
Yeah.
Right. And like that aspect of like, like the only thing that, is you're not even here on this planet. You're just in a universe where all you know is lift.
Yeah.
And the fact that, my adrenaline starts to spike at certain times of day based on when I normally lift. Like they seem to be really into that. They're like, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it is kind of crazy. You're genuinely conditioning your body to be capable of certain things that like most other people can't.
Yeah.
Right? Like this 170 is a warm up, right? But there's so many people on the planet who couldn't even pick this up off the ground. And yet it's actually just a warm up, right? It's an easier warm up for you than it is for me, but at the same time it is still a warm up. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting game. It's an interesting world.
And at some level, it's like really straightforward because the longer that you do it, and the smarter you are at training up to your capacity in the right way, determines how good you'll get. Plus some genetics, but most people overestimate the genetic factor, right? The genetic factor really separates like the elite people, but you can absolutely get to like a 450 dots having absolutely no genetic potential at all.
Genetic potential is really weird. I'm gonna throw a curveball for anybody
Like
who's
nobody who's not genetically gifted could ever get to like 600 dots.
No, but it's like,
do you know what I mean?
it's
but you could definitely get above 400.
There's probably someone out there that like they're like they'll like feel like they're stuck at some pretty boring numbers for forever, and you think that their genetics are bad. And then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 years down the line, stuff just clicks.
Yeah.
And they explode.
Yeah.
Like somebody who is like really like sub 450 dots, like probably around there, for maybe around 450.
Yeah.
So good, but not like winning comps or coming in kind of placing at some small meets.
Yeah.
But not elite certainly. But then all of a sudden, out of seemingly nowhere, just from consistency,
Yeah.
that numbers just explode. Like the body gets used to it, it adapts to where it was. It didn't push higher for a very long time, and then boom, you're at like 530, which is still not the best ever. Better than what I've done so far in comp. But that genetics is such a weird thing, and bodies. Sometimes people get too caught up in the sort of in thinking. Don't make that sound too close to the microphone.
Oh, oops.
Like making your weird tongue sound.
Yeah.
But that some people get caught up in numbers or thinking of what their body should be capable of or what they've been doing recently and sort of holding themselves to that instead of just like trying to almost just believe that more is possible for them.
Well, that's similar to what I said. A lot of people overestimate the limitation that they have if they evaluate that they don't have great genetics.
But my point now
it's
is
also
it's beyond
mostly-
that. Beyond it's like what even are good genetics? It is like if the guy is bad at powerlifting or medium at powerlifting for 5 years and then all of a sudden they're mega good. Did they have bad powerlifting genetics for the first 5 years that they were bad? And now they're very good. Like, what even are... Some people will get very good very fast and then stop. I'd actually say there's a lot of guys that you think have great powerlifting genetics that get to an 800 kilo total roughly very quickly and never progress from there.
Yeah.
Is that good powerlifting genetics? They got strong fast...
But then,
But then they tapered out and they went away and they got hurt. Their body, it wasn't not sustainable for their body. It's like, is that good powerlifting genetics? Like, it's a weird.
Well, it's
just
good
just
genetics to reach a very
and
high level of strength.
Just
for sure.
train, do fun, push yourself, like have fun, push yourself, and see what happens. It's like, don't get caught up in the what if or the I'm not genetically talented. It's like, who said? You?
Well, how many people are telling themselves
It's
that they're
self-identified.
How many people are not telling themselves that they're not genetically gifted, and yet in reality they're just people who aren't eating proper nutrition, aren't getting enough sleep, and don't have a long training history. So they've gone from completely unathletic to trying out powerlifting, and they are deadlifting 130 or 140 or something after 5 months of training. And now progress is being really, really slow. It's being hard because they're going from having a body which is like basically unathletic, untrained for their entire lives, never having done a real sport.
Yeah.
And now they're hitting a wall of it's hard gaining territory. When they see people who have some training history, who have done sports before, blaze past their current level, and they go, "Oh, I've got bad genetics." It's like, no, you just don't have the same training history that those people had, and their bodies were more prepared to adapt for strength training than yours was. You know what I mean? And maybe as well, your recovery, your nutrition, the thing you're doing outside the gym is also not optimal.
And what's
as those guys
unfortunately
are doing.
labeling yourself or putting yourself in a box, especially if the box is low,
It makes it come true.
it makes it come true. That self-fulfilling prophecy is huge.
Yeah.
I've only ever had people tell me I'll be pretty good at what I'm doing, regardless of what sport it is.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh, wrestling, yeah, you'll be good at that. Powerlifting, oh, you'll be good at that. Strongman, you'll be good at that. Arm wrestling, you'll be good at that." And I had a body. I've got decent genetics.
Yeah.
But I think for me, especially, I think we've got genetics. Like if you look at Dad, he's got great genetics for just like sustaining.
Yeah.
It's not like we get rapidly very strong. We just have a high training tolerance. It's probably something. If you're looking at like we're from the north of Europe, it was probably just like long hard days.
Yeah.
It's genetics to like struggle through and grind through long hard working days.
Yeah.
Physical working days. And because of that, our bodies can just handle a lot.
Yeah. Now, I mean, where you get into like bad genetics territory in terms of if your like proportions are all wonky.
That's
like if
the
you have a
biggest
combination long femurs and short arms, there's like what do you get?
But then
your squats going to suffer.
I've even said to somebody, there was some guy once years ago who said, "I've got horrible genetics," and I'm like, "Bro, you're jacked." Like he had long femurs, like short arms, long femurs. Is like he's like fucked up for deadlifts, and deadlifts for the men is the most important lift. And then he's also not good at squats. But I'm like, just find a different sport.
Yeah.
Find a sport. He's jacked. He was absolute huge chest, like tall, reasonably taller than me, but like kind of like weird, like long legs, short arms, like weird. But I'm sure there's a sport that would hear that description and go, holy crap, we need that guy. He's 6'2" with short arms and long femurs. We need that guy.
Yeah.
And he's jacked. He's like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like that downhill sledding. I forget what it's called. But there's a sport out there that needs that. So it's, that's again, that doesn't defend the point that it's bad for powerlifting. Right, the genetics can be bad or not favorable for powerlifting.
Proportions.
But like...
But that's not even necessarily like let's say that somebody does have unfortunate proportions for the squat and the deadlift. Like they get a raw deal on both sides. That doesn't mean they can't do well in those lifts. They can still train around their unfortunate proportions and still do weights that many other people cannot, right? And it really like that person's probably never going to deadlift 350 and squat 315 or whatever it is because their proportions are just weird for those movements. But that doesn't mean that same person can't get better than 99.999% of the population at those movements. Meaning like a 220 kilo squat and a whatever deadlift, like 250, 260 or something. And again, it's another one of those things where, of course, if you have wonky genetics, wonky proportions for those lifts, you're not going to be as good as someone who has better proportions and is putting in the work and is eating well and all those things. But you can still do well for yourself, right? And you can still become much stronger than the general population and even many amateur powerlifters, right?
Yeah.
So just because somebody has got weird genetics,
And there's also people with like what if you looked on paper shouldn't be good genetics for power. And then they're like the best, or some of the best.
So I think it's used as a cop out for people who are like.
I've never heard people who really are doing a lot and sacrificing everything and getting better. I've never heard those people talk about their genetics.
Right.
Or say
It's only ever talked about by the people who are essentially beginners.
there's a lot of people who think that they're doing what it takes, and they are severely underestimating what it takes to get very, very strong.
Yeah.
To get like truly very, very strong. Like you have a taste of it, right? You've done in waves of periods of time where you push yourself very, very hard, but not consistently and not for crazy long.
Mm-hmm.
And what it takes is doing like the hardest training you've ever done.
Yeah.
And then do that all the time for
Yeah.
like 10 years.
Yeah.
Which like you've now done it for a few years now, and you've gotten very strong as a result.
Yeah.
And now imagine if you just had started early, or imagine if you keep this up 5 years from now,
Yeah.
you'll hit numbers that are good.
Yes. Yeah. They're like anybody would look at and go, "Wow, that's a strong human being."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not like I pay attention to like literally the strongest people on the planet because I'm like I'm a lick away from there.
Yeah.
Or a few licks away from there.
But if someone achieves like a 300 kilo deadlift at 83,
Oh, that's
or
fantastic.
like 320, anywhere 300 to 320, which is like maybe
You can
lifetime goal.
squat 600, bench 350, like 600 pounds, 270 kilos.
Yeah.
Bench 350 pounds, like 160 kilos.
Yeah.
And then deadlift like 661, 300 kilos,
Yeah.
661 pounds,
Yeah.
300 kilos.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly strong person.
Yes.
It won't win world championships.
No,
it
of course
won't
not.
win nationals in
Yeah.
most countries. But that's undeniably a very, very strong person, and like not a dangerous person, but a dangerously strong person. So like a tough person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
And that's those numbers. Like I remember I once said that to somebody that, what do I think is a number that everybody could achieve if they really push themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, a 300 deadlift is realistically achievable for every human being.
Yeah.
So long as they don't have like a bone deficiency or something like that. Like if they're healthy, they're normal. They didn't have scurvy when they were 7. If they were like lived a normal life and they ate regular food and they were got to adulthood above 65 kilograms.
Yeah.
They can probably deadlift 300 kilos one day. They might have to eat a lot. They might have to get significantly heavier than they are. But that's 300 kilos is probably the number with straps that somebody is like everybody should realistically be able to get there. It's a non-elite number. It's so far off elite. If you look at even 83 kilo guys, Inoharo's pulling 400 at 83.
Yeah.
300, it's like 70. You're saying that you should.
Yeah, but that's a guy who is like the proportions.
Yeah,
for deadlift
but like
as well.
you're now saying like any person should be able to be 75% of the world record.
Yeah.
And that would be my take. And that's a crazy, because like a lot of people think that their limit is like 230. But like something I remember back to that early conversation you and I had about deadlifting huge. I saw somebody deadlift like 800 pounds, and I showed you, and you were like, "Oh, bro, I can never do that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why?"
Yeah. No, but I think
that
I think what you're actually saying is like theoretically, if those people
if it really mattered to them
had
and
the
they put
right
in
programming,
everything,
we're putting
Yeah.
the work in, we're actually approaching it with the right intensity. It's almost like I can kind of agree with you, but all of those variables in combination are never going to happen. Like you can't just take an average Joe, give him the perfect program for his body, and then he'll eventually.
Yeah,
get
he's
to,
got to push himself.
Yeah,
but that's where
push himself past the point that most people would push themselves.
but that's the thing. It's just not your body. It's now your mind.
Yeah.
It's not the human. It's not the body. It's not the genetics. It's the mind.
Yeah, and I mean that is the factor, the limiting factor in the cases.
Boom. That'll be a wrap for strict press. And so I'll piece this conversation. I think it was a good yap. I hope the mic picked up enough of it.